Welcome to another episode of the No More Wasted Days podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Sarah.
I'm Heather.
And today, Heather is talking to us all about radical acceptance. And we actually recorded this last week, but we had some technical errors, and I lost Heather on half of the recording. So all you really would have heard was me going, yeah, that's great. And I was like, oh, this is not going to work. I have to tell you, though, that this topic is so cool and you are in for a treat. And I'm excited to hear it a second time so I can start implementing it even more. So I'm going to let Heather take it away.
Thank you. So before Sarah and I have our conversation about radical acceptance, I want to share that this is something that has been really pivotal to me starting last summer. And it's something I've been working with my clients on. And what Sarah and I are going to chat about today is radical acceptance, what it is not, how it can be helpful on your alcohol-free path, no matter where you are on that path. And as always, some tips and strategies that you can use to make it yours. So what is radical acceptance? I think there's a lot of buzz around these two words. It's a concept that comes from dialectical behavioral therapy, which you'll hear called DBT. It involves embracing the present moment and accepting reality as it is, without judgment or resistance. What it does not mean is resigning yourself to a situation or that you must like or approve of what's happening around you or to you. It acknowledges things exactly as they are, and that includes discomfort, pain, challenges, without fighting against them.
Yeah. It's almost, when you think about it, a way when you learn how to surrender the situation. I'm going to surrender this. I'm going to let it be how it's supposed to be. It's a little bit different for sure, because I feel like when you surrender something, it's not that I guess you don't give up on it. So I guess it is kind of similar. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think surrender and acceptance are very similar.
Mm-hmm.
For me, acceptance means, just to me, that I can still act on it.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think when I was giving that comparison. That's a really good way to say it.
I know in the Serenity Prayer in AA, accept that things that you cannot change. And I think there's something about surrender in there.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody let us know. So to me, it means when we accept things, we can still do something. There can still be an
Yeah.
action item in acceptance. And I'll share what I mean by that. Pardon me. My cat was playing with the straw on my water cup, and that was going to be a whole nother thing for me to radically accept.
You're like, I'm going to have to radically accept this cat. No,
Right?
now that we've got video going too with Spotify and YouTube, maybe our cats will make an appearance. There's all
Yes.
this talk of our cats. No one gets to see them.
Right. I should have locked Kidney Houston Hart out, and I may have to do that. Anyway, so the practice of radical acceptance is the need to let go of control or controlling everything,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of letting go of the self-blame, guilt, and understanding that life can be difficult until we choose to respond. So this makes me think, in terms of accepting reality, of my favorite Matthew Perry quote, which is, folks like me hate the way things are and change.
Gosh, that makes so much sense. And I feel that in every addiction that I've overcome, with caffeine addiction, THC addiction, alcohol addiction. It is, I hate the way this is, but I don't want to change it. The change feels so overwhelming that I'm like, I'll just stay in this right now.
Yes. So when you recognize your situation and you can kind of shift toward embracing it, even no matter how unpleasant, without denying, that's one of my favorite things to do. It's a very maladaptive place. My brain goes straight to denial or avoiding reality. This leads to suffering.
Yeah.
And acceptance involves acknowledging things as they are. Some things just are. And then letting go of judgment. When we stop labeling things as good or bad, or even moral failures of ourselves, society, others, and we just notice them in a neutral way, without attaching a feeling to it or assigning whatever it may be some type of value, it really lets go of some of the, or well, it lets go of all the emotional baggage and judgment and criticism.
Yeah. I think that one is the biggest one. Accept it and then let go of judgment of it. And and I think when you say of emotions too, let go of judgment of the fact that this thing is making you feel angry. Let go of judgment of the fact that this thing is making you overwhelmingly happy, because I know sometimes there's things where we're like, I shouldn't feel so happy about this. Accept it, keep going,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And self compassion. Radical acceptance includes being kind to yourself. You accept your emotions and your responses without any self criticism. It's important to treat yourself the way you would your best friend going through a hard time. Or, as I've been talking with some of my folks about, like if you had the flu, treat yourself, put yourself to bed. If we're gonna radically accept today has been a day, and by acknowledging this, I am moving one step closer to my goal, whatever that may be. In this case, staying alcohol free. Go to bed. Treat yourself to some trash TV, some comfort food, and go to bed.
Man, we treat ourselves so good when we're sick.
Hmm.
I don't know about you. I'm always like, oh, I've got to go to sleep. And I will set the boundary with my family. I'm going to go to my bedroom and go to sleep. Please don't bother me. And that is a boundary I do not set in my normal everyday life. But I think we need to not be afraid to set that boundary from time to time, especially if you've just quit drinking or something else and you're just kind of going, oh my gosh, I am completely overwhelmed. The emotions were too much today for me to handle. This is something I would normally numb out. I'm going to go to my bedroom and just lay down for a little while.
Yeah, it's a hard one.
It really is, especially if you're a mom and you feel like, "Oh, by saying I'm gonna go to bed early, I'm sacrificing this time with my kids, and I only get so much time with them," because that's the mom guilt trip I will put myself on. So, I know other moms put them I know I'm not alone in that.
I'm right there with you. So, this one I really like, non attachment to the outcome. Instead of trying to force things to unfold the way you want them to, accept them without clinging to a particular result. This helps reduce suffering that comes from met expectation.
This one is so huge. I think it falls in line with the, gosh, what is it? When you, make amends. I was like, I cannot think of the word right now. The making amends, and they always tell people, don't latch on to the outcome. Don't latch on to what the other people are going to say if you are out there making amends in the world and trying to make things right. Well, the other person may not think that it is right. And that's something that then you have to radically accept
Yeah.
and move on, and then treat yourself with self-compassion. And it's like, and go back and look at those other steps too.
Yeah.
I think it's a huge part of recovery that you don't expect in like the first 30 days, when you're just kind of clinging on to, I'm just putting the days together. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, as you keep going, you're like, oh man, I have to do this other work.
Right. And I'm glad that amends are recommended for folks later on the journey
Hmm.
because and I know that amends are for the other person, not for you. And using this tool is a great example of, okay, I radically accept that they say I remain to be no contact from you until you are 2 years sober. And I think it's important too to try to keep our expectations a little lower of others
Yeah,
too.
I think so too. And just remember too that everybody's walking through life dealing with their own stuff, right?
Hmm.
And we don't always know. And we're so in our own head, obviously, about what we're dealing with, that then we're like, how did they not know? How can they not read my mind and accept this the way I wanted them to?
Right. So it's important, and it's important on your alcohol free journey because, in terms of radical acceptance, again, I'm going to say it reduces suffering. I
Hmm.
personally suffered so much that when we resist things happening, now that I'm almost 4 years alcohol free, when we resist what is happening, you're creating unnecessary mental and emotional pain. And again, I put myself through enough of that. And it frees you from that resistance and it increases emotional resilience, which is a
Yes.
great combination.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, the stronger we get, we can respond more effectively to challenges without going into that constant, like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed, so overwhelmed, so overwhelmed.
Oh my gosh. People wear that almost as a badge of honor.
Mhm.
I've caught, and I only say that because I've caught myself. So if you're like, well, she's talking about me. No, I'm talking about me. I'm so overwhelmed. I have so much to do. I'm busier than the average person. I'm always like, no, you're not. Everybody has a lot to do. You just have different priorities. It's like, okay. And it's that whole, I've had to learn to accept that and start moving on. Almost like not accept that I'm overwhelmed, but accept that my life is busy right now. That's been a huge path that I'm on right now, kind of going, okay, I'm a mom in midlife. My kids are teens. They're thinking about what high school classes they're going to be enrolling in. There is a lot happening in my life. And in the middle of all that, I have a job and I have 2 jobs with building the house too, and it's like, that's pretty typical for a lot of women, actually. Not obviously not the house building part, but it's typical to have multiple streams of income and be raising your kids that are teens and making these huge life decisions, right?
Yeah.
And I think I finally somewhere over the summer, I started just being like, "Yeah, this is just the stage of my life." And then in 4 years, they're gonna be done with high school, and they're gonna be making a choice to go to college, and that's gonna be overwhelming too, right? Don't get me
Mhm.
wrong. Then at some point, they're gonna move out, and I'm gonna be at a different stage that and the stress or overwhelm will feel different. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna say it'll go away because I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. There's always going to be something. And if we can decrease suffering and increase resilience,
Yeah.
we are going to have the mental health and bandwidth to be able to support ourselves with healthier coping mechanisms when we do get overwhelmed. Some things are just, I'm going through, me personally, going through a really overwhelming point of time in my
Mhm.
life. And I, by practicing this and tons of support and other tools, like I am able to cope in a far more healthy way than
Yeah.
I would have as a drinker or before I did the work.
Yes. Yeah, because you can remove alcohol and do none of this work, and then you're it's like then you have a whole 'nother struggle because then your life isn't shifting into something that you love without alcohol. It's just the same old shit without alcohol, and you're
Right.
like, "Oh my god, this isn't anything people said it was gonna be." Yeah, well, then it's time to do this work. Learn how
Yeah.
to radically accept things, learn how to set those boundaries, and which I know you're gonna talk about at some point, right?
I can't imagine a day that I didn't say the word boundaries. I need like a fairy to poof out some money though. Every time
Every
I
time
say I get like boundary
boundary.
dust.
That would be amazing. Let's make it happen.
Who do I talk to? So, okay, how do we do it, right? So, acknowledge your feelings in the situation. For example, I'm feeling anxious, and that's okay. It's natural to feel this way before a big event. Then we're going to observe without judgment. Notice your thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations without taking them as good or bad. Simply observe them. Like I tell my folks, like, take them out, look at them. Like, this looks like anger. Hmm, whatever lands for you. And an example of that could be I shouldn't be feeling this way. Instead, I notice that I feel worried, and that's okay. And try not to fight against your own reality. I think this is painful. This is painful. For example, if you've experienced a setback, say you started drinking again when you didn't intend to, or you drank more than you intended to, you could say, I choose to accept it and move forward. And then practice self compassion. Treat yourself, as we said earlier, like you would a friend, like you have the flu. Go to bed, snuggle up, do what brings you comfort. You could say, it's okay to feel this way. And I'm going to offer, or I choose to offer myself kindness. And then focus on what you can control. And that is very little.
Oh my
I've
gosh.
done the field research,
Yes.
years of it.
And when you work on the focus on what you can control, it makes it easier to accept the situation because you start going, oh, well, there's not too much I can control. Basically, you can control your reaction to all of it. That's all you get. It's like, oh my gosh, that's all I get. And I don't know about you, that actually makes me feel better sometimes because sometimes I feel like I'm trying to manage so many parts of a situation that I have absolutely no part in. And when I can sit back and say, what can I actually control? And then I go, oh, only how I can react to it. Oh. Okay. Now, obviously, there's some things that you are majorly in control of, where they're your project or your whatever you bring to the table as far as like family contribution, right? Those things are more in your control, but there are so many things that are not in your control.
Yeah. And like what I can control apart from my response and, or reaction is I can control the color of shirt or lipstick I wear. I can, and seriously, I can have choice and agency in other areas
Mhm.
that give me the illusion of wanting to control something, which is a lot of times
Yes.
just anxiety. So, like, let me pick out my water cup and my lipstick color because I can control that.
Yeah. And let it make you feel good when you do it.
Yeah. I can also control what I do. And by
Yeah.
in the doing is not drinking, right?
Exactly.
So I think mindfulness is also really helpful when we're trying not to ruminate, which rumination is also anxiety. So,
Mhm.
any type of grounding technique, meditation, and as an example, noticing the colors and sounds around you to bring yourself more present in that moment. And I love this part also. Embrace the what is instead of the what if.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of worrying about every possible scenario or future tripping, if I fail, what if I drink again? Focus on what is happening right now.
Mhm.
And if you're in a challenging situation, focus on how to handle that with clarity rather than stressing all the possible outcomes.
What do you say all the time? "Oh, I should," all over myself
Yeah,
when you get caught in the shoulds.
don't
But
don't should on yourself.
yeah, I should do this, I should do that. Focus on what you're doing right now instead. And I love the focus on what is and not the what if. When I was a teacher, I wouldn't let my kids ask what if questions sometimes. Sometimes. I mean, that sounds so mean. I wouldn't let them ask this question. But it was kind of like when we were getting ready for musicals, they would, there's always a Debbie Downer in the crowd. And turns out elementary kids, there's a lot of them. Go figure. But they're like, what if the lead is sick? What if the school burns down? Like they would just come up with crazy things. What if the doors are locked when we get here? And I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys, let's not, if the question starts with what if, don't ask it. And that's even something I've started doing with myself. When I start going into the what ifs, I'm like, let's reframe this because maybe this is me just worrying and causing anxiety for myself.
Yeah. And also like check yourself when you're what ifing. Why?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
something's not met, or you're real anxious, or
Hmm.
something's going on. So take a look at that if you're what ifing a lot. So, when to practice radical acceptance? Anytime that you're struggling, basically, or when you're not. I always encourage folks to practice things when they're not struggling so that when they are struggling, it is already a practice.
That is so hard to do too. I've been having a hard time with that lately because I feel like my stress has been low for whatever reason. It really shouldn't be, but it is. And I've just been feeling my gratitude has been coming naturally. And therefore, I haven't been practicing my daily gratitudes. I hate to say that out loud, but I'm just kind of like, oh no, I feel like I'm just living in this grateful life right now. I'm very appreciative of everything that's happening to me. And I keep being like, this is when you need to lock in and keep doing the work. You
Yes.
can't just be like, oh, I feel great. I just feel awesome right now. So if you happen to be in this moment in your life and you're feeling like everything's going my way right now, lock in, do the work, radically accept that that's how you feel, and keep practicing all those little things that you
Yeah.
know you need to your meditation, your
Yeah.
exercise, all that.
Make it a time to pick this up. And like, this is where the magic happens, Sarah, truly. When my folks are like, I don't really have anything to talk about today. I'm like, yes. Then we can get into some of like root cause stuff
Yeah.
instead of like putting out fires, and just getting to the next time we meet again. It's like, this is where the good stuff happens.
That's such a good way to look at it too. Because I always think that sometimes, oh, people just don't have anything to chat about. Everybody's pretty quiet today. And it is like, oh, well, those are the times to bring up those bigger things that maybe we don't always wanna work on, it's like,
Mhm.
okay, well, now we actually can because you might be in the headspace where you can start digging into some of that stuff and see it in a positive way.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it's also really helpful when you're faced with chronic or uncontrollable circumstances.
Mhm.
And when you're fighting against the solution, or excuse me, the situation,
Yeah.
it allows you to radically accept where you are, allows you to redirect your energy toward healing and problem solving instead of just
Yeah.
being at war with yourself all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does, and it makes it just I don't know, it's a really cool concept, and I had never really heard of it until you brought up this topic. So I'm really happy you did because I've even since hearing it last week when we recorded, didn't go out to everybody, I really have been thinking about it like, "Oh, this is a moment to practice the radical acceptance.
Mm.
Accept it, decide what I can control in this situation, move on."
Yeah.
It has been so helpful. It's something I really wish I would have had really early in my journey.
Yeah. I didn't, like I said, I didn't start using, I really didn't. My friend of mine was talking to me about it. I was like, what is that? And I tried to like look up some podcasts about it, which I'm sure there are tons.
Mhm.
So here we are.
Yeah.
And also another time is the practice radical acceptance is when you are really stressed or anxious.
Mhm.
It helps you not spiral with your thoughts, allows you to be more present. And I want to say that this is not a concept for you to passively, like, just give up hope or like passively endure hardship,
Mhm.
right? We've done enough of that.
Yeah.
Understanding that in life, no matter who we are, where we are on our path, things are going to happen outside of our control. And instead of fighting against them, we can choose to face them with open eyes and an open heart. And this is a consistent practice, and it can really lead you to some emotional freedom, decreased suffering, increased mental health, bandwidth, and just deeper peace, which is
Yeah.
all they're all good things.
Yes.
So that is my like beginner's guide to radical acceptance. And it's really, really applicable to your alcohol free path. I wish somebody had talked to me a little bit about this when I was like a little further, me personally, a little further past 30 days.
Yeah.
And anytime, whether it's radical acceptance, just plain good acceptance, anytime you move toward acceptance in anything, particularly your alcohol use, you are making some badass moves.
Oh, yeah. I like that.
So, all right, we will see y'all next Tuesday. Can't wait to hear what you thought about the episode. Share this with a friend if you think they could benefit, and make sure you're following the pod. And check us out on Spotify. We're on video and on YouTube so you can see what
Yeah.
we look like.
And both Spotify and YouTube allow you to comment on the podcast episode, which is a really cool feature because we can hear what you think about this topic. Or even if you
Yeah,
have a question, that's a great place to ask it because maybe we can either answer it right there immediately or turn it into a future episode.
absolutely. Can't wait to hear from y'all. And bye, y'all.